So I thought I would make a quick video to review some aspects of the carbon cycle. Now that we've gotten to the end of the year and we know about both the natural carbon cycle and also some human impacts on the carbon cycle. So I'm going to use the water and land in this drawing. So we'll use this to represent the water, and then we'll have our land over here. And an important part of the carbon cycle is obviously photosynthesis and respiration. Photosynthesis and respiration aren't known for affecting the amounts of carbon dioxide because it's a cycle that's relatively balanced in nature. Like, in order for animals to have enough to eat, then there need to be plenty of producers. And as long as there are plenty of producers, the amount of carbon dioxide produced by respiration is going to be about the same as the amount that's absorbed by plants through photosynthesis. So here we have the plant absorbing the carbon dioxide, and then we have glucose that's forming inside the plant's cells. And then sometimes we also have the animal that's consuming the plant and regaining the carbon through that assimilation. So that's like I would consider like the basic part of the carbon cycle. Related to that, we also have decomposition. So when these plants and animals die and their bodies decompose, the bacteria that live at the bottom of the ocean, let's move this up a little bit so you can see it, or on land, when things decompose on land, are going to also consume oxygen and produce carbon dioxide as part of that decomposition. And so decomposition is another way that carbon dioxide levels are going to rise. That's related to eutrophication and dead zones, which we'll talk about more when we talk about nitrates. Okay, so there's our basic natural processes of photosynthesis, respiration, and decomposition. We also have some of these organisms that decompose eventually become fossil fuels. And so some of that decomposition becomes fossil fuels, and those would include obviously coal, oil, natural gas, which all have formulas that include carbon. So petroleum has a formula that usually looks like this, which contains just hydrogen and carbon. Those are called hydrocarbons. Methane is also a hydrocarbon, and that is the formula for natural gas. Most of natural gas is methane. And then coal is a little different. Coal has carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and sulfur. So that makes its composition a little more complex than the other fossil fuels, which I'll just put FF, but coal is one of the fossil fuels. So all those fossil fuels form from the remains of plants and animals, and most of them formed from the remains of marine plants and animals. So the natural gas and the oil came from marine organisms, while the coal formed from trees, especially trees that formed early in Earth's history and weren't able to be decomposed by the bacteria that existed at that time. So there's not a lot of new coal forming. My understanding is the coal that we have is still the remnant of the trees that existed a long, long time ago before there was bacteria adapted to decompose those trees. Okay. So when we burn those fossil fuels, we know that that also contributes to carbon dioxide. So up here we could have a factory or a vehicle. It's burning fossil fuels, and that would contribute to carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And then some of that carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, especially the excess carbon dioxide that results from burning fossil fuels, is going to be reabsorbed by the ocean, right? And when carbon dioxide is absorbed by the ocean, that is called acidification. And the specific acid that forms is carbonic acid. So acidification is going to lead some of that carbon dioxide to form carbonic acid. And then carbonic acid is going to react with marine organisms, like this is a shell, okay? And that shell is made of calcium carbonate. And so the carbonic acid is going to react with calcium carbonate and it's a little bit more complex than what I'm showing here. But as a result, some of that calcium carbonate is going to get dissolved, and also the available calcium carbonate that marine organisms need to build new shells is going to decrease because of the presence of the carbonic acid in the water. So carbonic acid is going to reduce the materials available for shells, and also it can dissolve some of that shell and make those organisms weaker. And so as a result, we could see fewer marine organisms that have exoskeletons like that in the future. Another aspect which came up on a previous FRQ was the fact that limestone is a base. So it's good to know that carbonic acid is an acid and that calcium carbonate acts like a base, but also that calcium carbonate, when these organisms decompose, that calcium carbonate is what forms limestone, which is also a base. And limestone can be used to raise the pH of your soil because it acts like a base. It's also what's found in the base layer of soil in places that were ancient oceans. So again, there's some aspect of Earth's history here where ancient oceans, the marine organisms, when those oceans dried up or changed due to sea level changes, those shells became the limestone. You might remember during the floods in Texas last summer, there was a lot of talk about the limestone there. That limestone was because there were previously ancient oceans there. One last thing that we could add here is just that volcanoes also produce carbon dioxide. So if we wanted like a natural source of carbon dioxide, aside from respiration, it could be the exhaust from volcanoes also produce carbon dioxide.